All right, shall we get started?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much for agreeing to talk to us. We're very thrilled to have you today. Love the books. So,
Thank you.
First thing, how are you coping? Like family coping with everything happening? I know you just said before with COVID and everything online. Yeah, how's everything going?
Oh, look, I think for me, so in my house, it's just me and my partner. So that sort of, I don't have to do homeschooling. I don't have to be homeschooled for all you kids out there. I can't imagine that was very easy either. So I've just had my partner working at home, but we've just moved into like a 2-bedroom apartment. So I've got my own office. He was set up in the kitchen. We went, on walks down to the beach together at lunchtime. So it's kind of been okay for us. He's from France, so there was a bit more concern for his family back in Europe because the situation there was really bad. But as far as things go, I think we haven't done too badly. I think for me, the biggest disappointment in the beginning was all the book stuff getting cancelled. Like I had all these cool stuff lined up, school visits, national tour. So all that kind of getting cancelled was a bit disappointing. But once I kind of yanked up my socks and dusted off my shoulders and stopped crying in the bathroom about that, then since then it's been okay.
Awesome. I know my daughter's very happy to go back to school and not be homeschooled by mum. So
no offense, Mum. I'm sure you did a great job.
Oh, I'm sure she'll be more happy at school. Where did you grow up and what was your experience with like reading and writing?
So I grew up down on the Mornington Peninsula in Victoria. I'm actually a Victorian girl, even though I live in Sydney now. And we grew up on a small 10-acre farm down there. So I had one older sibling who wanted nothing to do with me because I was his very uncool younger sister. So I spent a lot of time by myself, begging mum to like give me activities to do and stuff like that. Climbing trees, running around in paddocks, playing games with myself and my own imagination. And so for me, books, reading in particular, but also writing was just a really good way to put up with myself and spend time with myself. So it was really great. And I used to make my mum like staple paper together so I could write my own books. And before I went to school, I was so desperate to go to school. So I used to make my mum like make homework for me. Such a geek. It was great. So yeah, I was always really into that. And I think I was always a super imaginative kid and books really helped me with that. I remember reading like Bridge to Terabithia and then going down into our lower paddock and building my own, playhouse. And I was all about that kind of stuff. So just imagination has always been a big thing for me. Creativity and books have just been allowed that to grow more than what my normal life experience would have been living on a farm. I got to experience other worlds and other lives that I wouldn't have if books weren't there.
Oh, excellent. Very good. So why do you believe reading and writing is so important?
Well, I mean, like, obviously it has educational benefits, which we all know are very important, vocabulary and like all that kind of stuff. But for me, it's really about storytelling. And there is not a human being on the planet that doesn't like being told a story. And you got to remember too, when we watch movies, when we read books, when we're talking in the playground, that's all storytelling. When you're telling somebody what you did on the weekend, that's just a version of storytelling. And so books will always broaden your brain, help you learn about other people, other ways that people live. Sometimes it's easy for us to think that this world that we live in, that we see every day, that's the end of it. But there's people all around the world who are living in lots of different ways. And I think reading can really help you learn about that. It made me really inquisitive about traveling. I wanted to go and see places that I'd read about. So for me, it's about that. It's about hearing stories of other people, expanding your mind and making the world that you live in as big as the real world. And then, of course, just like imagination. Like, I just think imagination just makes your life if you lose your imagination and your playfulness, it kind of gets a bit sad. So I think books are really good at keeping that alive and making you think that everything's possible. I think because of books, I really believed that I could do whatever I wanted to and be whatever I wanted to when I grew up. And I did. So there, I was right.
See, you proved them right.
Yeah,
Love
I
it.
knew it. Told you.
Told you. What advice would you give to parents that are struggling to get their kids to read and to take an interest in books?
I think one of the biggest hurdles that we kind of come across is that we treat reading like a chore, and kids will pick up on that. Don't stress too much about what kids are reading. Don't stress too much. They'll always have to read for school. Eventually, they're going to get given something that they have to read, and that's fine. I think, like, as a parent, if you can bring that joy of reading, and that can be reading to them, like, you know, I think we pressure ourselves so much with this idea that, like, my kid should be doing this at this age and this at this age, and if he or she is like 8 years old, why is he or she still reading books that they were reading when they were 6? And shouldn't, it's just like, whoa, you know, just really try to foster that love of reading. And I think, like, I'm just turned 40. Shh, don't tell anyone. I still love being read to. I get on like CBCA Storytime and listen to other authors read to me. So just that, like, if they're into graphic novels, if they want to read the same book for the 8th time, that means that book means something to them. It can be it's almost like a teddy bear. It can make them feel comforted. So school will worry about what they have to read. As a parent, just try to make them love reading or being read to. And I think the other thing is, like, when I was a kid, I hated mushrooms and I really loved lollies. And I grew up and now I like mushrooms. I still love lollies, but I don't eat as many of them as I did when I was a kid. And reading can be the same, you know, like, if you're worried that your kid's only into fart books, they will grow into other stuff as long as that love of reading is there, and you can, like, just let them read some fart books. It's not that bad. And yeah, so I think that just make it a joy, make it fun, you know, whatever it is that, and don't stress too much about it, or you'll stress the kid out as well.
Exactly. And I think nowadays we have such a wide platform, so you can listen to books, you can watch people reading, you can, yeah. So I think these days it's a lot easier for parents to sort of take that step back and go, look, just listen to something, read something, it's okay. So yeah, thank you. That's awesome.
I think if your kid's getting intimidated by words, audiobooks are amazing. And if you're like, I can't read a book that thick, you know what? David Wallums or someone like that will do it for you. So yeah, audiobooks are another great medium.
And I think kids, like my son's dyslexic and he does struggle to read, but he's found listening to books, he's found that love of reading again. So he'll listen to it and read along with it. So I think that way it's really good and beneficial too, because they're learning in their comfort zone as well. So
they're learning by being told stories. They're learning about story structure, which is a big part of reading and writing. Yeah. You know, it's the same as watching movies. Like, I come from a film background, and that's really affected in a good way my writing, because movies is just another form of storytelling, you know. Yeah. So all those things will make the grappling, especially with someone that's finding it difficult, if they're grappling a bit with the idea of reading, story structure, characters, setting, all those things are elements, and any way they can come into your world, it'll make the reading part easier, I think.
Excellent. Yeah, I agree. Excellent. Where do you get your inspiration from for your story?
Everywhere. Like, I really feel like sometimes I'm like a pickpocket and I'm just like sneaking around the world, reaching in and stealing bits out of people's pockets for ideas. I'm a big eavesdropper. I listen to people's conversations all the time, especially because I don't have kids. So I listen to conversations of kids, other people's kids a lot. Yep. I often steal ideas off kids when I go to do school visits. Some of the things that they say to me and ask me, I'm like, file that away and steal it later. I mostly, though, a lot of my own experiences too. I have a really vivid childhood memory and a really strong connection with like Kid Nat. And so I take a lot of that from things that confused me as a child, things that excited me, because I mean, really, those things haven't changed. I'm still confused by the same stuff and I'm still excited by the same stuff. And then one of the big ones is things that annoy me. I really like when I feel frustrated at the world or at people, or I don't understand, or I don't know why people are behaving a way that they're behaving. They're often the things that really stick with me and gnaw at me. And they're the things that I then enjoy exploring in stories. And lastly, comedy. I really like funny stuff. Anything that's big, over the top. Whenever I have an idea, I think about how I can make it bigger and more exaggerated. And I really like the idea because my books are set in the real world. So technically everything that happens could happen. There's no dragons or magic or anything like that. But it's really heightened reality. It's that real kind of like, it could only barely happen, so it's like just almost realistic. So yeah, I think I couldn't even, like, inspiration comes at me from every which way. The idea for Secrets of a Schoolyard Millionaire actually came from a YouTube video that I saw and a newspaper article that I read. And Power of Positive Pranking sort of began with a conversation I was listening to in a cafe. So, and then I collected lots of other bits and they all kind of piled together. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Wow, that's really cool. Who's your biggest role model?
So I guess I'd have to say as far as like authors go, Paul Jennings and Gillian Rubinstein when I was a kid were huge influences on me. Those books stayed with me forever and ever and ever. And it hasn't really changed. Like, I still, of course, there's like so many amazing authors out there at the moment, but because I was so influenced by them at such a young age, I think they still stick with me as role models. But then I also had, so that's kind of like the hero-y kind of role model, but then I also had like some teachers through school who really supported me and told me that I was a good writer, and even in uni as well. And those people, I guess, are kind of my role models too, because without their support and encouragement and all that sort of thing, I probably wouldn't have ended up here. So Mrs. McKay, Mrs. O'Keefe, all those wonderful teachers that mean nothing to you, but they meant everything to me. They had a really big influence on me as well. So I would call them role models, I think.
Awesome. I'm sure they'd be thrilled to hear that.
Yeah.
When you're writing, what is your process? How do you get your ideas out and onto paper?
Okay. This is a funny one, because when I hear other writers talk about their process, I'm like, oh, they're so professional and they have charts and shapes and lines and lists, and I'm not very organized when it comes to writing. I'm a bit I spend a lot of time thinking about it, so I chew on it in my head for a long time. I have to have a beginning and I have to have an end, so I know how I'm starting and I know where I'm going. But in between, it's really kind of like blurry until I start writing. A lot of it sort of figures itself out as I write, and as I have characters, they kind of take on a life of their own and start doing their own thing. So I'm very instinctual when I write. I'm just kind of like sit down, cross my fingers and hope for the best. There's not a lot of plotting. Like I said, I have to have a general idea, but there's not a lot of organized plotting. It's kind of chaotic. Yeah, so I think that's why, when I'm asked for sort of advice and stuff like that, my honest advice is just give it a go. Because the more that I write, the better I get at it. It's just like playing soccer or doing gymnastics or anything like that. It's just, do it more and you'll get better at it. And yeah, so I more than that, more than having a beginning and an end and thinking about it a lot before I start writing, that's kind of my process. It's sort of really simple and unprofessional.
No, that's good. Do you have a time frame? Like you've got to work for so many hours, or is it you just keep writing till it stops, or do you have?
Well, it's so I also do video editing freelance. And so sometimes I'll get a video editing job that has to be done in 5 days, and that was a week that I was planning to write, but now I have to take this job and do it in 5 days, and so I'll go that 5 days without writing because I'll be doing a job. So I'm really like, I have a deadline, as in if I have a deadline with a publisher that I have to meet, but I have to be super flexible with what happens in that space because I just never know. I also can't force it. But I do find that if I sit down and I start, I will pump out a lot. And then when I get to the point where I'm struggling, I just let myself stop. So I am quite good at making myself write, but that's about it as far as planning goes. I really enjoy writing, so if I sit down and try, chances are I'll produce a lot. So because I actually really enjoy it. So yeah, that's. I sound like the most disorganized author on the planet right now.
But I think that will a lot of kids will listen to that and go, oh, that's okay, because that's how I write. That's, they have something and they'll sit and write. And then they might go, oh, I don't know, or, they sit at different times. It doesn't just automatically come free, like really easy. So I think that's a good message that, when it comes, basically.
Well, and the other thing is kids have to go to school and they have homework and, I have work and I've got to do the shopping. And so, the writing has to happen around that. But I think the key is if you love it, you'll always find time for it. And that's, there is a bit of discipline involved. You do have to, stop procrastinating and sit down and do it. But if you love it, you'll find the time.
Awesome. Well, like we do with everything else we love.
Yeah.
Favorite author? Do you have a favorite children's author or adult author?
Yeah, well, I mean, I have at the moment, like with modern, like I was saying, so Paul Jennings and Gillian Rubinstein from my past, Philip Pullman, I love his dark materials. At the moment, there's so many, because I have a podcast that's all about kids' books. I read so many books and I'm constantly amazed by new authors that are coming up that are brilliant. But I would say generally I'm more a favorite book as opposed to favorite author kind of person. Some of my favorites have been like Vincent and the Grandest Hotel on Earth by Lisa Nichol. That book was amazing. A Cardboard Palace by Elaine Webster. Pretty much anything Catherine Rundell writes is amazing. So I have lots of favorite books, lots of favorite authors. From an adult point of view, this is going to sound quite weird, and not many people know this about me, but I mostly read kids' books, and when I read adult books, they tend to be true crime, which is completely like other end of the scale. And so in that case, it's not really about the author for me. It's about the story or the case or whatever. But as an adult author, probably Raymond Carver, I've always been. Ever since I was a teenager, I've really loved his stuff. I think he has an amazing way of sort of expressing stuff using what's considered quite minimalistic or simple language. And it's quite an art. Yeah, so I've always liked him.
Oh, awesome. Very good. What are you currently working on?
Oh.
So you've just got The Power of Positive Pranking coming out in a couple of days, which is very exciting. What's next?
Well, the question is, what should I be working on? I actually have another book due to the publisher in mid-October. So that's what I should be working on. I haven't started, but don't tell Penguin. Shh. Yeah. So at the moment I'm planning, that is probably going to be, if all goes to plan, the third and final in this kind of Watterson world. So Millionaire and Pranking happen in the same kind of world, even though they're about different people. They're in the same town and the school. And so I'm hoping this one will be the third and, I don't know, maybe final. I don't know. As I said, I'm not very good at planning ahead. So, I'm thinking, I'm working on it up here, but I haven't physically started working on it. But yeah, that's definitely on the cards. Once I kind of get through the launch of Pranking, I need to really sit down and do that.
Okay, so your new book, as we were just talking, The Power of Positive Pranking's out in early June. Can you tell us a little bit about it? Maybe read a little bit to us?
Sure can. So The Power of Positive Pranking is about a girl called Casey her and her friends, Zeke and Cookie, they have a group called Greenpeas, and they're kind of like a activism group who are trying to sort of save the planet and stuff like that. And then Casey finds out that something is happening a little bit closer to home with a pretty shady mayor, and she and the Greenpeas decide to take down the evil mayor and save something that's very important to her in the town. And they do that by using their superpower, which is pranking. It's kind of like, I always think that people should find their own superpower when they really believe in something. Like, some people are good at public speaking, some people, want to be out in crowds and marching and protesting, but some people are a bit shyer and they maybe want to, it's going to be easier for them to write something rather than being in front of people. And so I really liked this idea of their superpower. Like, they were really good pranksters, but they were going to use their pranking for doing good. So I can definitely read you a little bit. This is actually the first time I've read from the book. So you guys are especially special is what you are. All right. So the beginning of the book, it starts with a really big and elaborate prank. And then after the prank goes down and it's a great success, the Greenpeas meet in their secret meeting place. And so this is a little bit from their first meeting after the big prank. I do the secret knock and Zeke lets me in. Sorry I'm late. No worries, he says. Mr. Deary had a bunch of new words that I figured you'd want to add to the list. Sometimes I think Zeke knows me too well. I take a seat next to Cookie and pass her the Greenpeas folder. Her t-shirt today says, trees are people too, and there's a little cartoon of a girl hugging a tree. One of yours, I ask? Cookie nods. Dad and Aaron got me a bunch of new t-shirt transfer paper for my birthday. This was a tester. Love it. Cookie always makes the best shirts. I turn to Zeke. Did you collect the cameras? He's always in charge of making sure our events are recorded. He pats his satchel. I know. What 11-year-old has a satchel? It's so antiquated. It's so Zeke. Roger, he says, giving me a salute. Just say yes, Zeke. Roger that, he says again. I give up. The garden shed gives a metallic grumble as it leans in the wind. This is where we meet every second lunchtime. Unless there's an event coming up, and then the meetings are more often. No, more frequent. I heard that word on the news last night. More frequent bushfires are an effect of global climate change. I like words with a Q in the middle. They sound fancy. No, they sound eloquent. So there's a little taster, because Casey's a big lover of new words. So as well as being an activist, she really likes to learn new words all the time. So that's a big part of her personality too.
Thank you. How did you get the idea for Casey? She's the main character. Where did that stem from? Was that?
Well, she actually has a little cameo in Secrets of a Schoolyard Millionaire. So when all the kids are asking Tess and Toby for money, and they kind of hold a pitch desk, and all the kids get to come up and say how they would spend the money, and if Tess and Toby like the idea, they give them the money. And Casey actually comes up and pitches the idea of a prank. And the prank that she pitches in Secrets of the Schoolyard Millionaire is actually the opening scene, the first prank in the book of Power of Positive Pranking. So she had this little cameo role, and I just loved the idea of a prankster. I loved the idea that there was someone in the school and that was their thing. But even more importantly, I was really interested in the idea of why they did it. And, a lot of people expect it to be like a class clown who just wants attention. But Casey's kind of the opposite. She's super under the radar, and she has really good reasons for pranking. And her pranks aren't just dog poo in your shoe. They're like really clever and well thought out and big plans. And then as I started writing it, she just developed into this like being of her own. I love Casey. She's so great. She's my new best friend.
I know. After I've read it, I was like, yep, definitely. I love Casey. I think she's awesome. And particularly that character, I think for kids is really important too. Like she's a prankster, but as you said, she's doing it for the benefit of their group. So I think that's awesome. Lastly, is there any other advice or anything you would like to pass on to kids that are wanting to be writers or adults that are wanting to write themselves? Is there any?
Either or, kids or adults, just do it. Like, it's so easy to be put off by, like, looking at a book and going, oh, there's so many words in it. I look at these two books and cannot believe that me and this little brain put that many words together. And if you think of it like that, it can be really intimidating. So if you've got a story that you want to tell and it's just like eating away at you, or you think it's going to be really funny or scary or anything, just put it down. Maybe it'll become something, maybe it won't. But the more that you write, the more you'll find your way towards that thing that will be a thing. So I actually wrote a whole book before I wrote Millionaire, and it went nowhere. It's still sitting in my desk drawer. But it was a stepping stone to me writing Millionaire. And if I hadn't written it, Millionaire wouldn't have been as good as it was. And I think for adults, it can be a fear of failure or not being good enough that can stop them. First of all, when you write, you don't have to show it to anybody if you don't want to. It can just be for you. So don't worry about that kind of judging. And for kids, I think what can sometimes be a bit intimidating is, oh, I don't know all the big words, or I don't know where the commas go, or my grammar's not that good. Let me tell you something. My grammar is terrible, and I still don't know where a semicolon goes. I have no idea what to do with those things. But the beautiful thing is I have editors, and that's what they're there for. They help me with that stuff. And you have teachers and you have parents. So just tell the story first. Don't worry about using big words. Don't worry about punctuation. Tell the story you want to tell, and somebody will help you fix all those bits. They're not as important as the story. So if you've got a story to tell, do it, write it down. If you're not very good at writing, record it into a tape recorder. Just tell your story. That's the most important thing.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and good luck with all the books, the book coming out. It's so exciting. And good luck with writing the next one as well.
Yeah, thank you. I really need to.
We'll talk to you again then and have a chat about your new book. So that'll be exciting. Yeah, awesome.
So much for having me.
Oh, it's been our pleasure. Anytime you want to join us, just let us know and we're happy to have you.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Bye,
everybody.
Bye.